A humble woman gets mocked and forced to play the piano, but her talent shocks everyone. In a small, unassuming town where simplicity reigned and everyday life was marked by quiet routines, there lived a woman whose gentle spirit and genuine kindness were known by everyone who had the privilege of meeting her. Her days were spent tending to her modest home and sharing warm smiles with neighbors, embodying a sense of tranquility that belied the challenges hidden within her heart. She moved through life with a humble grace that seemed to attract the attention of both the kind and the cruel alike. Despite her natural warmth, there were those who envied her peaceful existence and sought to exploit her vulnerability for their own amusement. The whispers of discontent grew louder as influential figures in the community, with hearts hardened by jealousy and disdain, hatched a plan to use her in a spectacle designed to demean her. The idea was as cruel as it was calculated. Force her to play the piano, a delicate instrument that had once been associated with beauty and emotion, so as to reduce her to a caricature of mockery. In their twisted vision, her performance would be a farce, a public display where her innocence would be preyed upon by the laughter of those too self-assured to know humility. The woman, who had always found solace in the quiet moments of her daily routine, was suddenly thrust into a scenario that challenged every fiber of her being. With a sense of dread she had never before experienced, she was approached by men with sharp eyes and sharper intentions, their smiles belying the cruelty of their plans. Their words, dripping with false sympathy, convinced her that her participation was a matter of duty rather than choice, leaving her little room to refuse their demands. As the days passed, the mounting pressure to perform in this degrading spectacle began to erode the last vestiges of her inner strength. The townsfolk, who had once admired her for her modest lifestyle, now watched with a mixture of curiosity and disdain, unsure whether to intervene or simply revel in the unfolding drama. Her heart ached with the knowledge that the beauty of her soul was being exploited for cheap amusement by those who thought themselves superior. Every passing moment was a reminder of the precarious balance between vulnerability and strength, as she was forced to reckon with the harsh reality of how some could twist kindness into a tool for humiliation. The quiet corners of her home, once filled with the soft murmur of everyday life, now echoed with the looming threat of an event that would shatter her sense of self. The piano, an instrument that had always represented the possibility of creative expression and soulful music, was now being repurposed into a weapon of derision. In the days leading up to the event, her apprehension grew like a storm gathering strength on the horizon, darkening her thoughts with the inevitability of what was to come. The community, divided between sympathy and schadenfreude, began to take sides, with some secretly hoping that the spectacle would expose her fragility. Yet, beneath her gentle exterior lay a reservoir of unrecognized strength, a quiet resilience that had weathered many hardships in silence. The woman found herself caught in a relentless tide of conflicting emotions, torn between the desire to preserve her dignity and the overwhelming pressure to conform to the expectations set by her oppressors. Each evening, as she sat alone in her modest room, her thoughts would wander to the possibility of a different future, a future untainted by the cruelty of public humiliation. Her eyes, often filled with the soft light of hope, now betrayed the glimmer of fear that came from knowing that her life was about to be transformed by forces beyond her control. In the solitude of her reflections, she recalled moments of laughter shared with loved ones, which now seemed distant in the shadow of impending disgrace. The irony of her situation was not lost on her, for she had always embraced the piano as a symbol of beauty and emotion, never imagining it would be twisted into a source of scorn. The very thought of her forced performance filled her with a profound sadness, as if the instrument itself was mourning the loss of its true purpose. Friends who once offered kind words now looked on with a mixture of pity and judgment, their eyes reflecting the harsh reality of a community divided by cruelty. With every reluctant step she took toward the inevitable, the path ahead seemed to narrow, a corridor lined with the sneers of those who sought to see her fall. The news of the event spread like wildfire through the town, igniting conversations filled with bitter anticipation and morbid curiosity. Each passing hour drew her closer to the moment when the piano would no longer be an instrument of art, but a stage for humiliation. The anticipation was so thick it seemed to suffocate her, leaving little room for the natural rhythms of hope and joy that had once defined her life. Even as she prepared herself for the ordeal, the soft chords of her internal melody whispered that she was more than the sum of her fears. In the midst of the rising storm of public expectation, the memories of her past kindness and quiet resilience shimmered like fragile stars in the darkness of despair. The anticipation of forced performance was not merely a moment in time, but an epic that threatened to redefine her entire identity. Each day that led to the event felt like an eternity, a prolonged moment of torment where the future was painted with hues of uncertainty and dread. The weight of societal expectations pressed down on her, each passing second reinforcing the notion that her individuality was being reduced to a mere object of ridicule. The pristine image of the piano, so often associated with sublime artistry, now cast an ominous shadow over her once peaceful existence. The cruel design of the influential figures was meticulously crafted to strip her of her dignity, leaving her as an unwilling performer in a grand charade of cruelty. The whispers of those in power echoed in her ears, a relentless reminder that her life was no longer her own, but a puppet in the hands of those who reveled in her suffering. The gentle cadence of her once idyllic days was shattered by the discordant symphony of impending disgrace, each note a harbinger of the humiliation to come. The thought of the piano keys under her trembling fingers stirred a mix of dread and a latent spark of defiance, a conflict that resonated deep within her soul. As the day of the event drew near, she could almost feel the cold, calculating eyes of the crowd fixated upon her, waiting to witness her fall. In her solitude, she questioned the fairness of a world that could so easily transform tenderness into target for derision. The oppressive atmosphere that had enveloped her life seemed to signal the end of an era of quiet grace, ushering in a period where her innermost vulnerabilities would be laid bare for public consumption. Even so, beneath the layers of fear and trepidation, there remained a flicker of hope, a small, defiant light that promised that the essence of her being would not be easily extinguished. The day of reckoning, shrouded in a foreboding sense of inevitability, was fast approaching, and with it came the promise of a challenge that would test the very limits of her spirit. The unfolding of events was like a carefully composed piece of music, each note meticulously arranged to create a crescendo of emotions that would soon sweep through the hearts of all who bore witness. The cruel spectacle that was being orchestrated not only threatened to tarnish her reputation, but also to erode the intrinsic beauty that had always defined her character. The narrative of her life, once simple and unremarkable, was about to be rewritten by the harsh hands of those who mistook her kindness for weakness. As the final hours before the performance dwindled away, her thoughts swirled in a chaotic dance of fear, sorrow, and an unexpected, silent yearning for vindication. The calm before the storm was a bittersweet reminder of all that she had endured and all that was about to be challenged. In the depths of her heart, she clung to the memory of better times, moments of pure joy that were now in stark contrast to the imminent act of degradation. The legacy of her innocence was being tested in ways she had never imagined, setting the stage for a transformation that would defy all expectations. The looming event was not just an isolated moment of humiliation, but a reflection of a broader societal malaise that had long repressed the beauty of authenticity. In the quiet spaces between her fearful breaths, she began to realize that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, the spark of her true self remained intact. As she approached the threshold of the event, the complexities of her emotions intertwined with the delicate notes of an inner strength that had lain dormant for far too long. The chapter of her life that had been built on gentle simplicity was now on the verge of being irrevocably altered by forces that sought to diminish her inherent value. In the grand, ornate hall of a renowned cultural center, the stage was set with an air of both sophistication and calculated malice that belied its true purpose. The elegant chandeliers cast a soft glow upon the polished marble floors, highlighting every detail of the luxurious yet deceptive environment. Behind the scenes, influential organizers moved with precision, orchestrating every element of the event with the intent to demean rather than celebrate. Their carefully laid plans were masked by a veneer of social prestige, disguising the cruelty that lay beneath. In hushed whispers and knowing glances, the organizers discussed the event as if it were a grand performance, one in which the true act was the humiliation of an unsuspecting soul. The invitation to this so-called cultural spectacle was extended to an exclusive group, all of whom shared an unspoken anticipation for a show that promised both drama and scandal. As the evening drew near, the public space buzzed with a mixture of excitement and a sinister curiosity that hinted at something far less innocent. The Grand Hall, normally a sanctuary for art and music, was transformed into a stage for exploitation, where beauty would be marred by derision. Elaborate floral arrangements and finely tailored decorations were arranged with deliberate care, all serving to distract from the underlying malice of the planned performance. The air was thick with a tension that mingled with the sweet scent of expensive perfume and polished wood. In the midst of this ostentatious setting, the woman found herself ensnared by forces beyond her control, her fate sealed by a cunning manipulation of circumstance. A group of well-dressed officials, their expressions a mix of feigned concern and hidden glee, approached her with words that dripped with insincerity. Their voices, smooth and persuasive, insisted that her participation was both an honor and a duty to the esteemed community gathered that evening. Each word was carefully chosen to shatter any hope of resistance, leaving her feeling isolated and overwhelmed by the pressure of expectation. The imposing piano, resting regally on the stage, stood as a silent witness to the unfolding drama, a symbol of art now tainted by the cruelty of its intended use. With each step she took toward the stage, the crowd's anticipation grew, their eyes fixed on her in a mixture of pity and predatory delight. The room was filled with murmurs and subtle sneers that barely concealed the collective desire to see her falter under the weight of the spectacle. The organizers, confident in the humiliation they had so meticulously planned, exchanged glances that spoke of their certainty in a disastrous outcome. Under the guise of formal announcements and gentle encouragement, they pressed her to the center of attention, leaving her little room to retreat or resist. Every decorative detail of the venue seemed to conspire in emphasizing the theatrical nature of the event, transforming the space into a stage for a cruel performance. The polished surfaces and grand architecture served as a stark contrast to the grim intentions of those orchestrating the humiliation. With an almost ritualistic precision, the schemers ensured that every seat was filled and every eye in the room was trained on her reluctant figure. The ambient lighting, designed to flatter the space, instead cast harsh shadows that seemed to mirror the darkness of the planned mockery. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere shifted from one of elegant anticipation to a palpable sense of impending disgrace. The woman's trembling presence on the threshold of the stage was both a testament to her vulnerability and a signal of the sinister forces at work. Every carefully placed accent in the decor, from the gilded frames to the intricately patterned carpets, became an unwitting participant in the spectacle of humiliation. The tension in the room was almost tangible, a heavy blanket of expectation that suffocated any remnant of her personal dignity. The whispers among the onlookers grew louder as the moment of forced performance approached, their words laced with both scorn and a bizarre admiration for the unfolding drama. In that moment, the luxurious surroundings seemed to mock her inner turmoil, each refined detail a stark contrast to the raw cruelty of her situation. The organizers maintained their composure, their smiles a cold mask that concealed the calculated satisfaction they derived from her distress. The public, gathered from all walks of life, seemed to relish the spectacle of an innocent life being exploited for entertainment. Despite the high-minded ambience of the hall, an undercurrent of disdain permeated every conversation and every furtive glance. The woman's footsteps echoed across the marble floor as she was escorted closer to the stage, each step a reminder of the inevitable confrontation with her own humiliation. The prestigious event, cloaked in an aura of cultural refinement, was nothing more than a thinly veiled trap laid by those who thrived on the suffering of others. The stage, with its polished surface and impeccable acoustics, was prepared to broadcast not art, but the bitter sting of public ridicule. In a final act of cruelty, the organizers made sure that every aspect of the performance was designed to leave her exposed and vulnerable. The room, filled with the murmurs of anticipation and the rustle of expensive fabrics, awaited the moment when her inner beauty would be forcibly revealed. The elegant backdrop of the venue provided a dramatic contrast to the ignominy that was being meticulously orchestrated. Each guest in attendance carried with them the expectation of witnessing a fall from grace, an event that promised to reaffirm their own sense of superiority. The interplay of light and shadow on the stage served as a metaphor for the dual nature of the evening, graceful on the surface, yet marred by cruelty underneath. As the final preparations were made, the organizers exuded an air of confidence, convinced that the night would end with her complete subjugation. Every element of the event was orchestrated to amplify the spectacle, from the arrangement of the seating to the careful positioning of the piano under the spotlight. The looming performance was set to be the centerpiece of the evening, a moment when the boundaries of decency would be shockingly overstepped. The pressure of the setting bore down on her, each step toward the stage marking a descent into a public arena of disgrace. In the refined surroundings of the hall, even the soft strains of background music seemed to mock her impending ordeal. The meticulously arranged decor, designed to evoke admiration, instead became a backdrop for a calculated abuse of trust. The entire setting was imbued with an unsettling blend of opulence and malevolence, a combination that promised both beauty and heartbreak. As the final moments before the performance ticked by, the air crackled with a mixture of dread and anticipation, leaving no doubt that this was an event that would forever change her life. The orchestrators, satisfied with the sinister elegance of their setup, awaited the unfolding of a moment that they believed would shatter her spirit beyond repair. The moment her trembling fingers brushed against the cold, ivory keys, a hush fell over the room, as if time itself had paused in anticipation of the unexpected. The delicate sound that emerged was not the hesitant clamor of forced participation but a gentle, soulful note that hinted at a profound reservoir of talent hidden within her. With each subsequent touch, her apprehension gave way to an emerging confidence that transformed the dissonance of her past humiliation into a harmonious prelude. The initial strains of music resonated with an authenticity that defied the cruel intentions of her captors, replacing mockery with an undercurrent of awe. As her hands found their rhythm, the room, once filled with sneers and scornful glances, began to lean in as if drawn by an invisible magnetic force. The soft melodies cascaded across the space, filling every corner with a warmth that contrasted sharply with the earlier chill of derision. Each note carried a weight of emotion and history, evoking memories of forgotten dreams and quiet perseverance. The audience, initially poised to revel in her downfall, was now silently captivated by the beauty that unfolded from her fingertips. In that transformative moment, the piano ceased to be a tool of humiliation and instead became the conduit through which her soul communicated its untold story. The unexpected clarity of her performance transcended the boundaries of conventional music, resonating on a frequency that touched the deepest parts of those who listened. The subtle vibrato in her chords carried whispers of hope and redemption, challenging every preconception about her abilities and worth. With each passing measure, the force of her talent grew, eclipsing the cold intentions that had once surrounded her. The interplay of light and shadow on her face, illuminated by the stage's soft glow, revealed a transformation that was as emotional as it was physical. The room seemed to pulse in time with her playing, as if the very walls were alive with the power of her music. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now shone with an inner light that defied the darkness of her previous circumstances. The melody, rich with complexity and nuance, told a story of struggle, resilience, and ultimately, triumph over adversity. The intricacy of her performance was marked by subtle shifts in tempo and dynamics that spoke volumes without the need for words. In that single, continuous flow of music, the past was both acknowledged and transcended, leaving a lasting impression on every heart present. The sound of the piano, now imbued with genuine artistry, wove an intricate tapestry that invited listeners to journey with her into realms of unspoken emotion. The audience's initial laughter and derision gradually dissolved into stunned silence, replaced by a reverence for the raw, authentic beauty of the performance. Every keystroke was deliberate and imbued with the weight of her lived experience, transforming what was meant to be a mockery into a powerful declaration of self. As the music swelled, it became clear that this was no accidental display of skill, but a long-suppressed talent waiting to be unveiled at the most unexpected moment. The intricate patterns of sound that emerged from the piano were as unpredictable and vibrant as the colors of a sunrise after a long, dark night. The unexpected clarity in her technique revealed years of unrecognized passion and an innate understanding of the instrument that defied her previously unassuming nature. The harmony between her emotions and the music created a performance that was both deeply personal and universally moving. With every crescendo, she challenged the preconceived notions that had been imposed upon her by those who sought to diminish her worth. The transformation was so profound that even the most hardened cynics in the room found themselves unable to look away. The resonance of her performance seemed to awaken something within the audience, stirring a sense of compassion and wonder where only disdain had reigned before. In the midst of the music, the oppressive atmosphere of the earlier humiliation melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of shared humanity. The sound that emerged was not just music. It was a narrative of hope, pain, and the relentless pursuit of beauty in the face of cruelty. Each note, perfectly executed and brimming with emotion, challenged the spectators to reconsider their judgments and recognize the true depth of her spirit. The transformation in the room was palpable as the melody evolved into a symphony of redemption and quiet power. With her every gesture, the piano became an extension of her being, translating the unspoken language of her heart into notes of luminous clarity. The layers of sound built upon each other, creating a rich, immersive experience that transported the audience far beyond the confines of the ornate hall. The interplay between delicate pianissimo passages and bold, soaring fortissimo moments mirrored the internal conflict between vulnerability and strength that she had long concealed. In the midst of the performance, her eyes briefly closed as if in reverence to the music itself, allowing the emotion to flow unimpeded. The sheer intensity of her concentration was evident in every subtle movement, each one a testament to the hidden reservoir of skill that had been kept dormant for so long. The unexpected mastery of the instrument turned the once foreboding silence into a canvas of endless possibilities. The haunting beauty of her improvisations spoke to the complexity of the human soul, capable of both profound sorrow and boundless joy. The delicate interplay of minor and major chords created a sonic landscape that was as unpredictable as it was breathtaking. As the music continued to build, the transformative energy in the room grew into a palpable force that seemed to uplift everyone present. The revelation of her talent was not just a moment of personal triumph, but a seismic shift that redefined the nature of the event itself. With every resounding chord, the barriers between performer and audience dissolved, leaving behind a shared experience that transcended the confines of the physical space. The magic of the moment lay in its spontaneity, a burst of brilliance that shattered the monotony of expectations and defied the cruelty of those who had orchestrated her downfall. The deep, resonant tones of the piano seemed to echo the unyielding spirit within her, a spirit that refused to be diminished by the weight of scorn. In that performance, the music emerged as a beacon of hope, a symbol of how even the most suppressed talents can illuminate the darkness when given the chance to shine. The unexpected unleashing of her skill not only silenced the cynics but also reawakened a dormant passion within the hearts of those who had once taken pleasure in her humiliation. With every sweeping arpeggio and delicate trill, she wove a narrative that celebrated the resilience of the human spirit against all odds. The transformative power of her music was undeniable, reshaping the event into a moment of catharsis and renewed perspective for all who witnessed it. The final notes lingered in the air like a soft caress, a promise that from the depths of despair, beauty could indeed be reborn. The transformation of the audience unfolded gradually as the woman's unexpected talent shifted every sneer and whisper into looks of wonder and introspection. The crowd, initially brimming with cruel amusement and anticipation of her failure, found itself slowly drawn into the magnetic allure of her music. Faces that had once been contorted with scorn softened with a dawning recognition of beauty emerging from the heart of adversity. The mocking laughter that had punctuated the early moments of the event faded into an uneasy silence as each note resonated with raw emotion. A palpable shift occurred as the spectators began to perceive her performance not as a spectacle of humiliation, but as an intimate revelation of hidden strength. The atmosphere in the hall transformed from one of derision to one of rapt attention, each individual captivated by the sublime interplay of vulnerability and power. Whispers turned into murmurs of admiration as the initial shock gave way to a deep, contemplative silence. The audience, once united in their callous intent, now found themselves divided between disbelief and a growing respect for the woman's resilience. Eyes that had earlier gleamed with malice now shimmered with unshed tears and wonder at the unexpected beauty before them. In that charged moment, the very air seemed to tremble with a collective realization that a profound transformation was taking place. The shift in sentiment was evident in the subtle yet unmistakable softening of voices, as casual mockery was replaced by hushed conversations about the transcendent quality of her performance. Each chord that filled the hall served as a catalyst, dissolving long-held prejudices and inviting the audience to reconsider their earlier intentions. The elegant notes spilled over the polished surfaces and ornate decor, weaving a tapestry of sound that resonated deep within the hearts of every onlooker. As the performance progressed, the spectators became unwilling participants in a shared journey, their emotions intertwined with the rising cadence of the music. The collective heartbeat of the room synchronized with the rhythm of her playing, drawing every person into a moment of unified reflection. The transformation was so gradual yet so undeniable that even the most hardened cynics could not help but be moved by the sheer authenticity of the sound. Strangers exchanged glances laden with empathy, silently acknowledging the profound impact of what they were witnessing. The power of the music was such that it transcended the superficial barriers of social class and preconceived notions of superiority. In that transformative hour, the audience realized that they were witnessing not a forced act of humiliation, but an organic outpouring of the human spirit. The grandeur of the setting, once used to amplify mockery, now served as the perfect backdrop for a moment of collective redemption. A gentle melancholy filled the room as the realization set in that they had all been complicit in an act of cruelty, and now they were being invited to share in the redemptive beauty of genuine art. The sound of the piano became a mirror reflecting the hidden depths of each individual, prompting a reevaluation of values and judgments. The initial excitement for spectacle was gradually replaced by an earnest desire to celebrate the courage and talent laid bare before them. A subtle shift in body language became apparent as shoulders slumped in regret and eyes widened in awe, revealing the emotional toll of their earlier behavior. The realization that true art can emerge from the most unlikely sources resonated powerfully, challenging every preconceived notion of worth and talent. In that moment, the crowd's collective heart seemed to expand, embracing a more compassionate perspective that transcended past misjudgments. The transformation was not just external, but internal, stirring feelings of remorse, admiration, and a deep-seated longing for redemption. Every note, filled with bittersweet grace, underscored the fragile beauty of the human condition. The audience, once united by their shared anticipation of mockery, now found solace in the realization that vulnerability could be the gateway to profound strength. The room, bathed in the soft luminescence of stage lights, now radiated an atmosphere of quiet introspection and reverence. The chords that once signaled derision now echoed as affirmations of the indomitable spirit that lay beneath the surface of what they had assumed was weakness. The transformation was so complete that even those who had orchestrated the event felt a stirring of regret as the harsh reality of their actions became painfully apparent. In the midst of this metamorphosis, the energy in the hall shifted from one of judgment to one of unspoken solidarity and collective healing. Each person in the audience began to reflect on their own experiences of pain and resilience, finding a kinship in the shared language of music. The subtle nods and empathetic smiles exchanged between strangers spoke volumes about the silent acknowledgement of a shared human frailty. As the performance continued, the echoes of her talent reverberated off the walls, dissolving the lingering remnants of scorn. The once divided assembly found a newfound unity in the sheer force of beauty and truth emanating from the piano. The transformation of the audience was not an isolated event, but a powerful testament to the capacity for change that exists within every human soul. In that defining moment, the boundaries between performer and observer melted away, leaving only the pure communion of shared emotion. The performance had become a mirror through which the audience could confront their own inner complexities and prejudices. A quiet humility replaced arrogance as every heart in the room was touched by the profound authenticity of the moment. The echoing sound of each resonant note served as a call to abandon judgment and embrace empathy. In the flickering light of the stage, the spectators saw not just a forced performance, but the luminous spark of a transformative, transcendent art form. The revelation that had taken root in the hearts of those present promised a lasting change, a subtle yet irrevocable shift in their understanding of human dignity. As the final notes began to linger in the charged silence, the audience was left forever altered by the beauty and truth that had emerged in that sacred, unanticipated moment. In the immediate aftermath of the mesmerizing performance, a profound shift stirred within her as she realized that the very instrument of her past humiliation had become the catalyst for her personal renaissance. The echoes of her music lingered in the air like a delicate promise of new beginnings, filling her with a sense of possibility that had long been dormant. With each deep, steady breath, she embraced the quiet triumph that had emerged from the depths of her struggle, acknowledging that her identity was no longer defined by the cruelty of others. A surge of determination welled up inside her, igniting a fierce desire to reclaim her dignity and rewrite the narrative of her life. In that transformative moment, the scars of humiliation began to fade, replaced by a shimmering light of self-respect and newfound confidence. The overwhelming weight of past shame was gradually lifted, allowing her inner strength to shine through like a beacon in the darkness. Every note that had once been played under duress now resonated as a declaration of her true worth and potential. She felt an empowering clarity that illuminated the path forward, dissolving the remnants of doubt and fear that had once paralyzed her. The turning point was not merely a fleeting incident, but a profound internal metamorphosis that redefined her understanding of success and failure. As she stood at the threshold of this pivotal change, the whispers of her own heart grew louder, affirming that she was destined for far greater things than what had been forced upon her. The applause and silent admiration of the crowd became the background to a more intimate victory, one that celebrated the reclamation of her identity. In that sacred space of personal triumph, every lingering hurt was transmuted into a source of strength, propelling her toward a future rich with promise. The painful memories of humiliation now served as stepping stones, each one contributing to the mosaic of her renewed spirit. With resolute determination, she vowed never to let the cruelty of others obscure the brilliance of her inner light. The transformation was both subtle and dramatic, a quiet revolution that began with a single, defiant note. The journey from despair to empowerment was etched in the soft cadence of her piano keys and the bold rhythm of her heart. In the silent aftermath of the performance, she discovered that the greatest victory lay not in the applause of strangers, but in the acceptance of her own intrinsic value. Every challenge she had faced became a cherished lesson, each one fortifying her resolve to overcome adversity. The vibrant energy coursing through her veins was a testament to the resilience that had long lain dormant beneath the surface. In that moment, she realized that her music was not only a form of expression, but also a powerful tool for self-healing and transformation. The turning point had arrived as an invitation to embrace her true self, unburdened by the expectations of a callous world. A quiet smile began to form on her lips as she recognized the beauty in her scars, each one a symbol of battles fought and won. Her eyes sparkled with the realization that every note played was a declaration of independence from a past steeped in humiliation. The turning point was a symphony of hope, a melody that promised redemption and the endless possibility of reinvention. The crisp, clear notes of her performance now echoed with the sound of liberation, resonating deeply within her soul. Each gentle chord served as a reminder that her inner strength was far more potent than the cruelty inflicted upon her. In that transformative silence, she felt an overwhelming sense of self-worth that defied every expectation. The triumphant surge within her was a silent roar that echoed the resilience of a spirit that had refused to be broken. The painful chains of the past disintegrated under the force of her newfound courage, leaving behind a heart that beat with unyielding determination. The audience's transformation had mirrored her own internal shift, reinforcing the notion that redemption was possible even in the darkest of times. With each lingering moment, she savored the victory of having risen above the circumstances that once sought to define her. The quiet resolve that emanated from her was a beacon of inspiration for anyone who had ever felt diminished by the cruelty of others. In that pivotal juncture, she chose to embrace the unknown future with open arms, unafraid of the challenges that lay ahead. The turning point was a celebration of her resilience, a testament to the indomitable spirit that had triumphed over humiliation. Each note from her piano now symbolized a victory over the past, harmonizing the pain and the promise of renewal. The soft murmur of her inner voice grew into a confident refrain that echoed with the assurance of a life reborn. With the weight of past judgments lifted, she felt a buoyant lightness that transformed her every step into a dance of liberation. The triumph was not fleeting. It was etched into the fabric of her being, a permanent reminder of the strength that lies within. In that glorious moment of self-acceptance, she discovered that the true measure of success was not in the approval of others but in the recognition of one's own worth. The cathartic energy that surged through her was as powerful as it was liberating, setting the stage for an extraordinary journey ahead. Every hesitant moment of despair was replaced by a steadfast determination to embrace her potential. The turning point was the genesis of a new chapter, where every setback was transformed into a stepping stone toward greatness. The warm glow of self-assurance radiated from her like a halo, dispelling the lingering shadows of her past. The profound sense of triumph was both quiet and thunderous, a personal victory that resonated with every fiber of her being. Each breath she took was infused with the exhilarating realization that her destiny was her own to shape. The empowerment that coursed through her veins was as tangible as the soft notes of her piano, each one a reminder of her undeniable talent. In that moment, the woman stood tall, her spirit soaring above the confines of societal judgment and cruelty. The turning point had not only redefined her relationship with music, but had also rekindled the dormant fire of her ambitions. Every heartbeat echoed with the promise of a future where she would never again be a victim of mockery. The triumph of that day was a watershed moment, a definitive break from a past marred by degradation, now replaced by the radiant promise of self-empowerment. In embracing her true self, she had transcended the limitations imposed upon her, emerging as a luminous symbol of resilience and personal victory. The narrative of her life was being rewritten, each sentence a testament to the extraordinary journey from humiliation to triumph. The turning point was complete, leaving her with the indelible knowledge that true success is born from the courage to rise, time and time again. In the weeks following her breathtaking performance, the echoes of her music continued to resonate long after the final note had faded, weaving a lasting tapestry of redemption that transformed the hearts and minds of all who had witnessed it. The once cynical crowd found themselves reflecting deeply on their own shortcomings, each person quietly acknowledging the cruelty of their previous judgments. Conversations that had once been filled with mocking laughter were now replaced by earnest discussions about the nature of talent, empathy, and the human spirit. The event became a turning point not only for the woman but for the entire community, as the transformative power of her performance sparked an unexpected movement toward kindness and acceptance. Social gatherings and local meetings turned into forums for introspection, where neighbors shared stories of regret and hope, realizing that every soul deserved a second chance. The influential figures who had once orchestrated her humiliation were now confronted with the consequences of their actions, forced to reckon with the moral bankruptcy that had defined their behavior. With the passage of time, the narrative of that fateful evening began to shift from one of scorn to one of heartfelt redemption, as people saw the beauty in the woman's resilience and the power of forgiveness. Her journey became an enduring symbol of how suffering could be transformed into a source of strength, igniting a collective reawakening among those who had once taken pleasure in her downfall. The community, once marred by prejudice and callousness, found itself gradually embracing a more compassionate and inclusive outlook, inspired by the silent testimony of a life reborn through music. In schools and public spaces, her story was recounted as a parable of perseverance and the redemptive power of art, serving as a reminder that every individual holds within them the capacity to change and heal. Local artists began to incorporate her experience into their works, using various mediums to express the profound lessons learned from her transformation. The quiet streets of the town took on a new vibrancy as murals and installations celebrated not only her talent, but also the possibility of renewal after despair. Families who had once whispered in judgment now gathered to honor the legacy of a woman who had overcome insurmountable odds with grace and dignity. The piano, once a tool of humiliation, was ceremoniously placed in the town's cultural center as a monument to the transformative power of redemption and acceptance. Community leaders organized annual events dedicated to celebrating resilience and artistic expression, ensuring that her story would continue to inspire future generations. Through heartfelt speeches and moving tributes, people expressed their deep remorse for the past and their commitment to fostering a more supportive and understanding environment. The woman herself, now regarded with reverence and respect, became a mentor and a guiding light for others who had suffered under the weight of societal expectations. Her once muted voice now rang clear and confident, as she shared her journey and encouraged others to embrace their own inner strength. The public, having witnessed the metamorphosis of a soul once oppressed, began to redefine what it meant to value talent and authenticity above all else. The transformative impact of her performance rippled through every facet of the community, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural and moral fabric of the town. In the wake of her rise, new policies were enacted to protect the vulnerable and promote a spirit of inclusiveness, reflecting a collective commitment to never repeat the mistakes of the past. The very air of the town seemed charged with hope and the promise of transformation, as every corner became a canvas for expressions of unity and forgiveness. Neighbors who had once been strangers now forged bonds through shared experiences of reflection and mutual support. The legacy of her music inspired local schools to introduce programs dedicated to the healing power of art, emphasizing creativity as a bridge between diverse communities. Her life story became a cherished chapter in the town's history, recounted with both pride and humility by those who had witnessed its unfolding. Public forums and community discussions became spaces where empathy was nurtured and the lessons of the past were taught as guiding principles for the future. Every mention of her name was now accompanied by a deep sense of gratitude for the transformative journey that had redefined the community's values. The cultural renaissance that followed her performance was not fleeting but sustained by a genuine commitment to change and renewal. Even the most skeptical onlookers found themselves compelled by the authenticity of her redemption, their hearts softened by the undeniable evidence of true transformation. The artist's journey, marked by struggle and ultimate victory, became a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt diminished or devalued by the world. In quiet moments of reflection, individuals recalled how a single act of vulnerability had sparked a wildfire of compassion and understanding. The town's narrative was rewritten by the quiet revolution that had taken place in the wake of her triumphant music. From the corners of dusty streets to the halls of prestigious institutions, her legacy was celebrated as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The painful chapters of the past were gradually healed by the salve of collective remorse and the promise of a better tomorrow. Public art, literature, and music all began to echo the themes of forgiveness and resilience, drawing inspiration from her remarkable journey. The reverberations of her performance transcended the confines of the hall, reaching distant communities and inspiring movements of change far beyond the town's borders. Her life, once marked by forced performance and public humiliation, was now a living narrative of hope and reinvention. Community members who had once been indifferent to the plight of others now actively sought to create environments where every voice was heard and cherished. The transformation became a shared commitment, a communal pledge to honor the dignity of every individual. Even as time passed and memories faded, the lessons of her experience remained etched in the hearts of those who had learned to see beyond superficial judgments. The celebration of her triumph was not merely an act of remembrance, but an ongoing movement toward building a more compassionate society. Her story, woven into the collective memory of the town, served as a constant reminder that redemption was always possible, no matter how deep the wounds. The legacy of her courage and talent transcended the boundaries of art and entered the realm of social change, inspiring legislation and initiatives aimed at safeguarding human dignity. In the soft glow of twilight, as the town settled into a peaceful calm, there was an unspoken acknowledgement that the journey from humiliation to acceptance was a shared victory. The transformative impact of her performance rippled outward, touching lives and rekindling lost hopes with each gentle, enduring note. The community now looked to the future with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to foster an environment where beauty, talent, and kindness were celebrated above all else. Every step taken, every decision made, carried the weight of the lessons learned from her extraordinary journey of redemption. In this new era, the scars of the past became badges of honor, symbols of the strength that arises when compassion triumphs over cruelty. The lasting impact of her art was not confined to a single moment in time, but continued to inspire a legacy of unity, acceptance, and profound change that would resonate for generations to come. In the weeks following her breathtaking performance, the echoes of her music continued to resonate long after the final note had faded, weaving a lasting tapestry of redemption that transformed the hearts and minds of all who had witnessed it. The once cynical crowd found themselves reflecting deeply on their own shortcomings, each person quietly acknowledging the cruelty of their previous judgments. Conversations that had once been filled with mocking laughter were now replaced by earnest discussions about the nature of talent, empathy, and the human spirit. The event became a turning point not only for the woman but for the entire community, as the transformative power of her performance sparked an unexpected movement toward kindness and acceptance. Social gatherings and local meetings turned into forums for introspection, where neighbors shared stories of regret and hope, realizing that every soul deserved a second chance. The influential figures who had once orchestrated her humiliation were now confronted with the consequences of their actions, forced to reckon with the moral bankruptcy that had defined their behavior. With the passage of time, the narrative of that fateful evening began to shift from one of scorn to one of heartfelt redemption, as people saw the beauty in the woman's resilience and the power of forgiveness. Her journey became an enduring symbol of how suffering could be transformed into a source of strength, igniting a collective reawakening among those who had once taken pleasure in her downfall. The community, once marred by prejudice and callousness, found itself gradually embracing a more compassionate and inclusive outlook, inspired by the silent testimony of a life reborn through music. In schools and public spaces, her story was recounted as a parable of perseverance and the redemptive power of art, serving as a reminder that every individual holds within them the capacity to change and heal. Local artists began to incorporate her experience into their works, using various mediums to express the profound lessons learned from her transformation. The quiet streets of the town took on a new vibrancy as murals and installations celebrated not only her talent, but also the possibility of renewal after despair. Families who had once whispered in judgment now gathered to honor the legacy of a woman who had overcome insurmountable odds with grace and dignity. The piano, once a tool of humiliation, was ceremoniously placed in the town's cultural center as a monument to the transformative power of redemption and acceptance. Community leaders organized annual events dedicated to celebrating resilience and artistic expression, ensuring that her story would continue to inspire future generations. Through heartfelt speeches and moving tributes, people expressed their deep remorse for the past and their commitment to fostering a more supportive and understanding environment. The woman herself, now regarded with reverence and respect, became a mentor and a guiding light for others who had suffered under the weight of societal expectations. Her once muted voice now rang clear and confident, as she shared her journey and encouraged others to embrace their own inner strength. The public, having witnessed the metamorphosis of a soul once oppressed, began to redefine what it meant to value talent and authenticity above all else. The transformative impact of her performance rippled through every facet of the community, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural and moral fabric of the town. In the wake of her rise, new policies were enacted to protect the vulnerable and promote a spirit of inclusiveness, reflecting a collective commitment to never repeat the mistakes of the past. The very air of the town seemed charged with hope and the promise of transformation, as every corner became a canvas for expressions of unity and forgiveness. Neighbors who had once been strangers now forged bonds through shared experiences of reflection and mutual support. The legacy of her music inspired local schools to introduce programs dedicated to the healing power of art, emphasizing creativity as a bridge between diverse communities. Her life story became a cherished chapter in the town's history, recounted with both pride and humility by those who had witnessed its unfolding. Public forums and community discussions became spaces where empathy was nurtured and the lessons of the past were taught as guiding principles for the future. Every mention of her name was now accompanied by a deep sense of gratitude for the transformative journey that had redefined the community's values. The cultural renaissance that followed her performance was not fleeting but sustained by a genuine commitment to change and renewal. Even the most skeptical onlookers found themselves compelled by the authenticity of her redemption, their hearts softened by the undeniable evidence of true transformation. The artist's journey, marked by struggle and ultimate victory, became a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt diminished or devalued by the world. In quiet moments of reflection, individuals recalled how a single act of vulnerability had sparked a wildfire of compassion and understanding. The town's narrative was rewritten by the quiet revolution that had taken place in the wake of her triumphant music. From the corners of dusty streets to the halls of prestigious institutions, her legacy was celebrated as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The painful chapters of the past were gradually healed by the salve of collective remorse and the promise of a better tomorrow. Public art, literature, and music all began to echo the themes of forgiveness and resilience, drawing inspiration from her remarkable journey. The reverberations of her performance transcended the confines of the hall, reaching distant communities and inspiring movements of change far beyond the town's borders. Her life, once marked by forced performance and public humiliation, was now a living narrative of hope and reinvention. Community members who had once been indifferent to the plight of others now actively sought to create environments where every voice was heard and cherished. The transformation became a shared commitment, a communal pledge to honor the dignity of every individual. Even as time passed and memories faded, the lessons of her experience remained etched in the hearts of those who had learned to see beyond superficial judgments. The celebration of her triumph was not merely an act of remembrance, but an ongoing movement toward building a more compassionate society. Her story, woven into the collective memory of the town, served as a constant reminder that redemption was always possible, no matter how deep the wounds. The legacy of her courage and talent transcended the boundaries of art and entered the realm of social change, inspiring legislation and initiatives aimed at safeguarding human dignity. In the soft glow of twilight, as the town settled into a peaceful calm, there was an unspoken acknowledgement that the journey from humiliation to acceptance was a shared victory. The transformative impact of her performance rippled outward, touching lives and rekindling lost hopes with each gentle, enduring note. The community now looked to the future with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to foster an environment where beauty, talent, and kindness were celebrated above all else. Every step taken, every decision made, carried the weight of the lessons learned from her extraordinary journey of redemption. In this new era, the scars of the past became badges of honor, symbols of the strength that arises when compassion triumphs over cruelty. The lasting impact of her art was not confined to a single moment in time, but continued to inspire a legacy of unity, acceptance, and profound change that would resonate for generations to come.